by challenging us in the United States Senate to do our job. We have a constitutional responsibility to be a check and balance. And the fear of our founders was that there would be a concentration of power in one branch, and that would lead to catastrophic consequences for our country. And what has Congress done? On oversight and advice and consent, we have confirmed a vaccine denier. On tariffs, we've given up our constitutional responsibility. On appropriations, we're bending the knee to an administration that is rescinding and decided what to spend and what not to spend, despite what our law in a bipartisan way was passed. We cannot cede power. There are consequences. A crumbling healthcare system, a deficit exploding, and our allies losing faith in us. Mr. Secretary, in the past, you have accused some of my colleagues of being in the pocket of pharma shills. You did that with Senator Warren today. You've done it in the past with Senator Bennett and Senator Sanders. You are not a pharma shill. But I believe we have to fight pharma and bring down the prices. And Senator Cortez Masto spoke about the legislation that we now have that would reverse the $5 billion handout to Big Pharma in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And when I leave today with Senator Wyden, we are going to go to the floor and seek unanimous consent to pass our legislation that would reverse that giveaway. And I ask you to put your policy in your body where your mouth is, and join us in supporting that bill to restore price negotiation power so those pharma prices can come down from being the highest in the world to something within range of reason. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you very much. Senator Young.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Secretary. It's my intention not to raise voice and to give you an opportunity to respond to an inquiry. I'm going to begin with long COVID. It shouldn't be a surprise to you. During each of our meetings, we've discussed my interest in making sure our government does its part to address this challenge, which afflicts, by most recent estimates, over 20 million Americans. They have been diagnosed. There are a number of others we know that go undiagnosed. Over 400 million people worldwide suffer from this at a cost of $1 trillion a year, which is roughly 1% of global GDP. This we know has had impacts on participation in the workforce, therefore our own GDP. So it's clinical. It's serious on a number of fronts. It's my hope we can come up with some therapeutics for this condition. One of the real barriers to that is seeing that we are able to launch more clinical trials. I want to get your update on how the clinical trials are going, what plans you might have in the works to increase the number of clinical trials as it pertains to long COVID.
Yeah, Senator Lee. There was a project funded, a long COVID project at NIH. There was a huge amount of money spent on it. It yielded nothing. And
I agree with that.
Right. And I think you know that we are doing now a different approach. We're launching a long COVID consortium. We're bringing together the best doctors in the country who have developed reputations for being able to long COVID. And one of them is a doctor that I actually...
Dr. Bruce Patterson.
Bruce Patterson and Dr. Jordan Vaughn, also from Florida. There's a number of them who are doing spectacular things where patients are reporting extraordinary progress. We want to get them all involved all in one room. We want to identify the protocols that are working. This is something that did not happen during COVID. It was all ivory tower science, and the doctors who were on the ground were ignored. The same thing happened during the HIV crisis.
Yes.
And we're trying to do something different, which
my time is limited. You mentioned ivory tower. And so that's a segue into a statistic that I've become familiar with over the years. It takes roughly 18 years for proven interventions, pharmacological or other types of medical interventions, to make their way out into the field. If we assume, I think a conservative estimate, 12 to 15 years until we have any really acceptable therapeutics for a long COVID. That's a cheerful estimate. Plus the 18 years until it finds its way into clinical practice. People roughly my age will pass. Actuarially speaking, they will pass before there's any acceptable therapeutic. So we need to accelerate our current activities. Can you give me a couple of things you're going to do to ensure that we accelerate our development of therapeutics?
I mean, the best solution is the same kind of solutions that we should have been pursuing during COVID, which is off-the-shelf approved drugs for that are there already.
Yes.
So you don't
it was recently reported that all the major pharma companies, I'm sorry if there's one good student exception, are serving as barriers to clinical trials. How can they repurpose?
It is bizarre that that's happening.
Okay, you're the Secretary of HHS. Will you be cracking down on this
Yes,
cooperation?
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Will you also be exploring research partnerships with other countries, seeing as I've established this is a global challenge?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we should have done during HIV. It's what we should have done during COVID.
Will you also be exploring whether ARPA-H, which has different research protocols than NIH, NIH is very good at what they do. It takes them a really long time to prove things because of their rigorous process. ARPA is more practical, right? And so one could imagine ARPA-H tackling this challenge. Will you be encouraging us?
Absolutely open to that, Senator.
Okay. Will you be working with me and other members of the committee on your aggressive strategy as it continues?
Yeah, I'm looking for good ideas everywhere.
Okay, the last thing I'd like to briefly touch on with the chairman's indulgence is just recognizing the president's leadership as it relates to the appropriate use of civil commitment to deal with homelessness challenges, mental health challenges, etc. He's taking a look at these practices. This can be a difficult conversation for so many of us, but I think it is worth considering whether government can play a more assertive role in helping people off the streets who have serious mental illness get off the streets, receive the sort of treatment they really need to be healthy. Can you provide some very brief thoughts on this topic, and maybe then I could follow up with a phone call
On the topic of
civil commitment? We can follow up, Mr.
It's mainly happening in the States, so I want to hear your ideas on it. If there's something that you
I think the president said, we ought to take a look at it. If there's somebody in 20-degree below zero temperatures consistently in Washington, D.C., and they're believed to perhaps have mental health challenges, might we consider how to offer them care in a controlled setting rather than allowing them to freeze to death? It might not be humane as we consider application of laws.
Follow up on that with you.
All right.
And Mr. Secretary, you've been here just like a minute or so under 3 hours. We appreciate that. We're not quite done yet. Senator Wyden has asked for one more round, so I said he, as the ranking member, should have the right to have one more round of 5 minutes for himself. And so, Senator Wyden, why don't you go ahead?
Mr. Secretary, we'll keep this brief. I'm going to ask about mifepristone. I was the first member of Congress to hold a hearing on this drug, which now has served more than 7.5 million women. And of course, it is used for reproductive health and medication abortion. It has been documented again and again as safe, and people say safer than Tylenol. And the reason that I'm asking the question is that I'm getting reports that you've said you're going to conduct a complete review of mifepristone's safety. And what we're hearing is it's not based on new clinical trials or data from the scientific community, but on one reviewed paper that's not a peer-reviewed paper by a political organization, Project 2025 sponsor whose stated mission is to advance an anti-abortion agenda. So what I'd like to hear today is for you to say that you'll commit that your best scientist, without bias, will be permitted to conduct this entirely unnecessary safety review. I don't see any evidence for it. You've called for it. But what I'd like to do is make sure that it's done right, and I'm very troubled by what I've heard about it. Your thoughts?
You have my commitment.
Okay.
It'll be good science and good scientists.
Okay. We'll get back to you to talk about specifically how that's going to play out, but I appreciate that. Okay, one last point for you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record declaration by these kids, some of them very young, who in the middle of the night, we were told by whistleblowers are being whisked away and the like. And what I'd like to enter into the record are statements by these kids that we have learned about, and also a memo prepared by the Guatemalan government outlining the deportation effort into the record. We've been able to obtain that, and I think it's an important part of the debate. And with that, repeat my time of 5 minutes.
All right, without objection. Thank you very much, Senator Wyden. And we are now at the point where I'll just make a couple very brief personal closing remarks, and then I've decided, Mr. Secretary, I said at the outset of this hearing it was going to be some partisan battling going on. That is something that is very obvious to anybody who's paid any attention to what's happened in the last 3 hours. There were several times that you were cut off, or I had to cut you off because we needed to keep moving along. And I'm not suggesting that you need to or should, but if there's anything that you felt you didn't have a chance to say, if you could briefly say it now, or if you would like, you'll have the opportunity to submit written responses to questions, which I'm going to reference in a minute, and you could make any further statements that you would like to make at that point.
I think I'll have mercy on everybody here and let us adjourn.
All right. Wise choice. Let me just say now that senators will be allowed to submit questions to you for the record by next Thursday, September 11th, by 5 p.m. And I just want to say, Mr. Secretary, during former Secretary Becerra's tenure, responses to these kinds of questions for the record were not delivered in a timely manner. And the example I'm going to give you is that on March 22, 2023, he got
here. We can't really hear. Done that, then, in my opinion, they support it.
Gotcha, I understand. So you think as a mod, they should say, hey, that kind of discussion shouldn't occur. In that regard, I agree, right? So,
Yeah.
So with that, all you gotta do is make a complaint, and it's against TOS, so then they'll suffer the consequences.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have, and apparently from what I've heard, though, it's people have in Talking Apes, or if you make a complaint, I've actually reported people who have, in Talking Apes, people who have have done things like harassment. There was a guy, the other guy, remember, I made a complaint for harassment in Talking Apes. His name was Seneca, I believe his name was. But if you don't believe me, Cora was there. She can confirm.
No, it's not that I don't believe you, but these harassment complaints are one person on the app to another person on the app, and that's just a violation it could be a violation of TOS depending on what is uttered or typed in side chat. So it would be up to those that monitor the TOS violations to render the consequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's just simply not going into the apes anymore. I mean, Jason and I'll speak for myself. I go in the apes a couple of times a week, and they attack me all the fucking time. Last thing in the world I'm going to do, well, again, it's just me. I'm not going to report them.
You can go into other rooms that the same thing happens, like Chillism House. they're
Yeah.
constantly attacking one another and new people that come in. So now they may have
I think there's a
patience.
distinction. I just want to say, like, I understand
Sure.
there's a distinction. Like, I just think, like, there's obviously a line that be drawn from just simply throwing insults at people and harassment and even worse, I mean, encouraging suicide. Like, if you do not condemn that in your house, then you support it.
Okay, Necro, was I ever on the top when that happened?
Well, I don't remember you being in those rooms when that happened, so no.
Okay.
So,
Necro, did anything happen recently which caused you to recall this event that admittedly was 2, 3, 4 months ago?
I mean, really, I just have, yesterday I was really just, I was frustrated with Jeremy because he's a person I've always been considered to be a friend, and the fact
You've got to be kidding me.
yeah.
He's one, and replays are on. Jeremy is one of the biggest hypocritical assholes in the ape. Okay, Jeremy is one of the biggest people that insults and attacks me more than close to anybody else. Again, me, I'm not going to report him. I just press leave quietly. Jeremy's a son of a bitch.
May I speak a little bit, Necro?
Sure.
I'll just give you my opinion. I'm 46, so maybe older than you, and well, I sound like I'm talking down to you, but I really don't mean to. What I mean to say, when I was in my 20s, I had a really hard time. For a variety of reasons. Most of it's because my house is pretty shitty. I mean, the world is full of a lot of negative people, I think. And at least personally for me, the best thing to do is avoid all the negative people and then find good people. That's just like that's the best thing that I ever did. That's the best thing I ever did in my entire life. Like, I haven't talked to my old man for 10 years because he's a liar. Everybody in my hometown knows that he's a liar. He's a drug addict and alcoholic. And since the time I was probably 6 years old, my job was to try to take care of him and get him out of trouble all the time. But there's nothing I can do to change him. I'm sure everybody has people like this in their lives. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta, I don't know, turn up the good and turn down the bad,
No, I would agree with that. Like, you can't police all of the world, how everything happens. But it's like, I mean, if you have it, like, if my boss is being racist, yeah, I'm not gonna deal with that. I don't think it's good to have those people in your life, but at the very least, you should, take action against someone who is affecting everyone.
Let me also the event that you're talking about, someone in the apes months ago encouraging you to commit suicide. I've been going to the apes for 2 or 3 times a week minimum for the past couple of months, and I've never heard it once. Now, that being said, I don't doubt that somebody a couple of months told you that, but I don't want to be one to police free speech. In answer to your title of the room, I do not believe that the apes should be banned based on what you've described. Now, if they made it a daily occurrence, which clearly they have not, to encourage people to commit suicide, if that's part of their MO, their modus operandi, that's a different story. But just the fact that there are assholes in there, such as Jeremy, who I mentioned before, and there are hypocrites in there, such as Jeremy, the last thing I want to do is attempt to police free speech. Because as soon as I get on my high horse and tell him that he can't or shouldn't be saying those things, then I'm restricting my right to free speech. So this is why, and again, you opened this room, I just saw it in the hallway. This is why I think the talking apes should absolutely not be banned. That's just my humble opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, though, I mean, understand free speech. I don't think free speech gives you the right to encourage harm of anybody else. I mean, if you encourage somebody to commit suicide and they do the deed, then that is murder.
No, it's not. I have to disagree, man, because at the end of the day, the only person that you have control over is yourself, right? That's what I was trying to get at with my whole dad thing.
Well, Pure, I think there has.
I can't.
Pure, I think there.
Well, let me just land, JCC.
Okay.
What I mean to say is this world's full of assholes, but it's also full of really good people. I see that you do animation and stuff. I actually went to college for graphic design.
This is not related to the topic of someone influencing somebody in your life, right? So you're deviating.
I am. Well, let me focus in then.
Okay, try to wrangle it up.
So what I'm saying is there's so many assholes in this world, they're going to give you all sorts of bad advice. Best thing is, like, you know what I mean? Just avoid those fuckers and really go out of your way to look for good people. I mean, that's the best thing I could say, right?
Yes, that's good advice, Pure. But what I was going to say was, supporting what Necro says, people can.
Okay, this is reading Marcus on Clubhouse. This is Anna. The reason why I'm doing this room is I have to do a lot of work, and so I'm basically going to stop recording Clubhouse for a while. I'm kind of excited because I feel like I've heard every single complaint, every single topic. I've heard every single person speak at length. And